Imagine a jungle where all animals dream of a better future. They want fairness, justice, and a leader who listens. Then comes the scorpion. Clever, smooth-talking, and full of promises. He says, "I will bring true democracy." The animals believe him. They cheer. They vote. The scorpion becomes king. But what happens next? Slowly, one by one, those who question him start disappearing. His enemies fall sick. His power grows. And before they know it, the animals realize democracy is not just about voting. It's about protecting freedom. But now it's too late. This is the story of the scorpion's democracy, a tale of deception, power, and the hidden dangers of blind trust. Stay with me as we break it down, part by part, in a way that makes you think, and maybe even see the real world differently. Let's begin. In a vast jungle where lions, elephants, monkeys, and birds lived together, the animals had a big problem. Their old king, the mighty lion, ruled with strength, but he did not listen to anyone. The animals were unhappy. They wanted change. They wanted a fair leader. One day, the scorpion, small but sharp-minded, stood before them. He spoke with confidence. "Why should only the strong rule?" he asked. "Every voice matters. If you make me your king, I will bring democracy. Every animal will have a say in the jungle's future." The animals were excited. This had never happened before. A leader who would listen to everyone. A chance to vote? It sounded perfect. So, for the first time in history, the jungle held an election. The scorpion was small, but he was clever. He promised fairness. He promised peace. And most of all, he promised that power would belong to the animals, not just one ruler. When the votes were counted, the scorpion had won. The jungle cheered. They had chosen their leader not through war but through democracy. It felt like a new beginning. But little did they know, their choice would soon become their greatest mistake. The scorpion was now the king. The animals were excited. They believed they had made history. No more rulers who took power by force. No more kings who only cared about themselves. This time, things would be different. The scorpion had promised fairness. He had promised to listen. He had promised that every animal would have a voice. At first, everything seemed good. The scorpion gave speeches about unity. He told the animals that their voices mattered. He asked them to share their ideas for the jungle. The animals felt important. The elephant suggested wider paths so everyone could move freely. The monkeys asked for more trees to swing on. The birds wanted safer nests. The scorpion nodded and smiled. He said, "We will work together to build the best jungle." But behind the scenes, something else was happening. The scorpion did not like animals who asked too many questions. He did not like those who doubted him. He started paying close attention to them. One day, the wise old owl spoke up. A leader should not just make promises. the owl said. He should take action. Where are the changes you promised? King Scorpion. The scorpion smiled. Patience, my friend, he said. Good things take time. But that night, something strange happened. The owl was found sick, unable to fly. Some animals whispered that he had been poisoned. Others said it was just bad luck. The scorpion acted surprised. This is terrible, he said. We must take care of our wise friend. But deep inside, the animals felt uneasy. As time passed, more strange things happened. The parrot, who always repeated the truth, disappeared. The deer, who asked too many questions, was never seen again. One by one, animals who spoke against the king either fell sick, vanished, or became silent. The jungle grew quieter. At first, the animals did not see the pattern. They thought these were accidents. But soon, they started feeling afraid. They stopped asking questions. They stopped sharing ideas. They did not want to be next. The scorpion, however, continued to smile. See, he said, the jungle is peaceful now. No fights. No arguments. We are all united. The animals nodded, but deep inside, they knew something was wrong. The democracy they had hoped for was turning into something else. The leader they had trusted was not as fair as he had promised to be. But by the time they realized it, the scorpion was too powerful to stop. The jungle was not the same anymore. At first, the animals had believed they were free. They had chosen their own leader. They had trusted him with their future. But now, things were different. Something was wrong, but no one dared to say it out loud. The scorpion ruled with a smile, but his eyes were always watching. The animals felt it. They knew that if they spoke against him, something bad might happen. They had seen it happen to others. The owl had never fully recovered from his illness. The parrot had disappeared. The deer was gone, and no one asked where they were. No one wanted to be the next one to vanish. Slowly, the scorpion made more changes. He said he wanted to keep the jungle safe. He said he wanted to protect democracy. So he introduced new rules. The first rule was about order. Too many voices cause confusion, he said. From now on, only a few trusted animals will share ideas with me. They will speak for everyone. The animals nodded. It seemed reasonable. The jungle was big. Maybe it was better if only a few spoke. But something felt wrong. The ones chosen to speak were always the ones who agreed with the scorpion. Then came the second rule. No more negative talk. Words are powerful, the scorpion said. Rumors can destroy our unity. From now on, anyone spreading fear or doubt will be punished. The animals stayed silent. What was fear? What was doubt? Who would decide what was allowed? No one knew, but no one wanted to test it. The third rule was the most dangerous. The leader knows best. I was chosen by all of you, the scorpion said. You trusted me, and I trust you. But some of you do not trust me. Some of you are working against the jungle's peace. We must find them. That was when the animals truly became afraid. The scorpion was not just ruling them. He was making them watch each other. Suspicion grew. Friends stopped trusting each other. The monkey no longer shared fruit with the squirrel. The tiger no longer walked with the elephant. Everyone was scared that someone might report them. The jungle was no longer free. It was quiet. The birds did not sing like before. The monkeys did not chatter. Even the wind seemed softer, as if it too was afraid to make noise. The scorpion had won. He did not need to use his poison on everyone. He had poisoned their minds. He had made them fear their own voices. And so, without realizing it, the animals had given up their freedom. Not by force, but by silence. The jungle had changed, but the scorpion wanted more. Controlling the animals was not enough. He wanted them to love him, to believe that he was the greatest king they had ever had. He wanted them to forget that they had once dreamed of something different. So he gave them a new story. One day, the scorpion gathered all the animals. His voice was calm. His words were careful. My dear friends, he said, I know some of you still feel uncertain. Some of you still have doubts in your hearts. But you must remember, before I became your king, the jungle was in chaos. The lion ruled with fear. The strong took whatever they wanted. The weak had no voice. I changed that. I brought peace. The animals listened. Was it true? Had things really been that bad before? Some tried to remember, but their memories were blurry now. It was true that the lion had ruled with strength, but was the jungle really worse than it was now? They were not sure anymore. The scorpion continued, I have given you safety. I have given you order. And I have done it for you, not for myself. But some among us do not appreciate this. Some still speak against our unity. Some still spread fear. They do not love our jungle as we do. The animals looked at each other. Who were these traitors? Who was speaking against the jungle? They did not know. But if the king said it, it must be true. The scorpion's voice became softer, almost sad. I do not want to punish anyone. I do not enjoy it. But to protect our home, we must find those who work against us. We must be strong. We must stand together. And so, the animals changed again. They began to watch one another even more closely. They no longer just feared speaking against the scorpion. Now they feared even thinking differently. If they had doubts, they kept them buried deep inside. If they heard someone whisper something uncertain, they reported it before someone else could report them. The scorpion did not need to poison anyone himself anymore. The animals did it for him. The jungle was full of eyes, full of whispers, full of fear. But the scorpion was not finished. Now that the animals feared him, he needed them to admire him. So he filled the jungle with his image. His face was carved into the trees. His words were repeated every morning. Every child born in the jungle was taught that the scorpion was the wisest, the kindest, the greatest leader they had ever known. The truth no longer mattered. What mattered was what the scorpion said was true. The older animals, the ones who had lived before the scorpion became king, still remembered how things used to be. But they were tired. They had seen what happened to those who spoke, and so they stayed silent. They nodded when the scorpion spoke. They repeated his words. They watched as the younger animals, who had never known anything different, believed everything. The scorpion had done what no king before him had done. He had not just taken power. He had rewritten the past. He had made the animals believe that he had saved them, that they were lucky to have him. And so, the jungle belonged to him not just in body but in mind. The scorpion had turned the jungle into a place of silence and fear. But fear alone was not enough. He needed the animals to not just obey him, but to love him. He wanted them to see him as their savior, the one who had given them everything. He wanted them to worship him. So he changed the way the animals thought. He did not just make rules, he made beliefs. First, he controlled their stories. In the past, the animals had told tales of great leaders, of wise elders, of brave ones who had fought for fairness. But under the scorpion's rule, those stories were forgotten. New stories were told. Stories where the scorpion was the hero. Stories where he had saved the jungle from disaster. Stories where he had protected the weak and brought peace. The young animals, who had never known anything else, listened with wide eyes. To them, the scorpion had always been their king. He had always been wise and just. The past, as their elders had known it, faded like a dream. Then he controlled their words. Certain words became dangerous. Words like freedom, fairness, choice. These words were whispered less and less, until they were almost forgotten. New words took their place. Words like loyalty, unity, trust. The scorpion told the animals that true loyalty meant never questioning their leader. True unity meant believing in his wisdom without doubt. True trust meant obeying without question. Some of the older animals still remembered the old words. They remembered what real freedom felt like. But they did not say anything. They saw what happened to those who did. Next, he controlled their thoughts. He made sure that every morning, the animals repeated his words. The jungle is safe because of the king. The jungle is strong because of the king. The jungle is nothing without the king. They said it every day until it became normal, until they no longer thought about what it meant, until they believed it. And so, little by little, the jungle changed again. The fear that had once kept the animals silent now turned into something else. It turned into love. Love built from lies. Love forced upon them. Love they did not choose but had come to believe in. The few who still saw the truth, who still remembered what real freedom looked like, felt trapped. They wanted to speak. They wanted to tell the others that they were being fooled. But they could not. No one would listen. No one would believe them. To the animals, the scorpion was not just their ruler anymore. He was their protector, their savior, their everything. And in the end, that was more powerful than fear. Years passed, and the jungle remained under the scorpion's rule. The animals no longer questioned him. They no longer whispered doubts to one another. They no longer dreamed of a different future. The scorpion had shaped their world so completely that they could not even imagine life without him. But not everyone had forgotten. Some of the oldest animals still remembered a time before the scorpion, a time when the jungle was different. They remembered a time when leaders were chosen, not feared, when voices were free, not silenced, when trust was earned, not forced. One of these animals was an old tortoise. He had lived for many seasons, long before the scorpion took the throne. He had seen the jungle change little by little until it was no longer the place he had known. He had watched friends disappear. He had watched young animals grow up believing lies. And he had watched, powerless, as the scorpion turned fear into loyalty and loyalty into blind devotion. But the tortoise also knew something the scorpion did not. He knew that no ruler, no matter how strong, could control everything forever. One evening, as the jungle rested under the dim light of the moon, the tortoise saw something that gave him hope. A small group of young animals sat together, whispering softly. They were careful, looking over their shoulders, afraid of being overheard. But the tortoise saw something in their eyes, something he had not seen in many years: doubt. The young ones had grown up in the scorpion's jungle, but something inside them still questioned. They were beginning to wonder if everything they had been taught was true. They were beginning to ask quiet, dangerous questions. Why did the scorpion rule alone? Why did those who questioned him disappear? Why did no one remember the past? The tortoise knew this was the moment he had been waiting for. Carefully, he moved closer, his voice low but steady. "You are not wrong to ask," he said. "There was a time before the scorpion." The young animals turned to him, their eyes wide. "Tell us," one of them whispered. And so, the tortoise told them the truth. He told them of the days before the scorpion, when animals chose their leaders, when different voices were heard, when the jungle belonged to everyone. He told them about how things had changed, how the scorpion had taken power, not by force, but by controlling their thoughts, their words, their stories. The young ones listened, their hearts pounding. It was the first time they had heard such things. It was the first time they had felt the weight of the truth. The tortoise did not tell them to fight. He did not tell them to resist. He only told them to remember. "Truth," he said, "is like a seed. It does not die even when it is buried. One day, it will rise again." And with that, he left them. Days passed, then seasons, then years. The scorpion still ruled, his power still strong. But something had changed. The young ones who had listened to the tortoise did not forget. They carried his words in their hearts. And as they grew, they whispered the truth to others. Quietly, carefully, the truth spread. The scorpion did not see it happening. He had made one mistake. He had believed that fear could last forever. He had believed that control was enough. But control cannot erase memory. Control cannot erase the deepest desire of all living things, the desire to be free. And so, one day the jungle would change again. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But one day, the animals would remember what the scorpion had stolen from them. And when that day came, his power, built on lies, built on fear, would crumble. Because the truth, once known, can never be forgotten. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.